What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin and Markets. My name is Ansel Lindner. Hope you're doing well on this Wednesday. So, big news over the last few hours, last 12 hours has been Ross Ulbricht has been pardoned, full pardon. We were expecting commutation, which is just an end of your sentence, but you're still guilty of the crime. It's still on your record. But a pardon expunges your entire record of that crime. And so this is the best possible news for Ross. Let's share the screen and take a look at some of these tweets that came out about this. What I want to do today is go over this topic, answer any of your guys' questions or comments, and then look at a few other things that are going on over there in Davos. So let's share the screen. And you can see this is the first one that came out from Ross's account. So full and unconditional pardon. So he is a free man. We've also seen some pictures now of him walking out of the jail. Of course, everyone should, especially people with podcasts that would want to interview him. I would not reach out to him for a very long period of time. Let him settle in and let him maybe reach out to people in the industry, stuff like that. Yeah, just respect his boundaries. But man, this is so great. It feels like the end of an era, maybe, or the beginning of an era. And my whole time in Bitcoin, well, I was here when he was sent to prison, but the Free Ross campaign has been a constant throughout the whole first part of Bitcoin coming up. And now he's been pardoned. And it's kind of like now the first era of Bitcoin can be put behind us. We also had like the MT Gox coins being distributed. That's kind of putting that chapter of Bitcoin behind us. Now this is putting another chapter of the beginning of Bitcoin behind us. So we're moving into middle age. We're moving into this new era. And then also with the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, it just is so perfectly timed that the end of that first chapter is closed now with the freeing of Ross, and now we can open to a very bright future going forward for Bitcoin. But let's take a look at Donald Trump and his tweet about it. So he actually called Lynn Ulbricht, and she's like royalty in the Bitcoin space. But the libertarians are taking, a lot of credit for this, and okay, that's fine. It is a Bitcoin thing, in my opinion, which supported me so strongly, blah, blah, blah. The scum that worked to convict him were some of the same lunatics that were involved in the modern day weaponization of government against me. He was given 2 life sentences plus 40 years. Ridiculous. So that is what he said there on Twitter. This was my response. Can we stop blackpilling now? So it was, promised on day one. It was actually about 30 hours after President Trump took office. So it's still within this whole range of being day one. And all I saw on Twitter for the few hours before this happened was all of these Bitcoiners saying this is ridiculous. They need to free Ross now. This is, I don't know. They're just getting very, very worked up about it. And yes, it's an emotional issue, but come on, 30 hours versus 24 hours. It's pretty much day one. It is a promise kept, and he went above and beyond. So he said he was going to commute the sentence, but he actually pardoned him completely. So it was even a better result than people were promised in the first place. But I thought it was an interesting experiment to see how Bitcoiners reacted and who exactly was the ones that were getting pretty worked up. I responded to some people that were very loud about it, with the, all the people that shout about President Trump. Remember on the first inauguration with that person that was on their knees and screaming? That's what it seemed like to me, all these Bitcoiners. But hopefully we can put this black pill outrage behind us and see what's happening in the United States and with Trump for what it is, a very, very positive development. Very positive development. all across the board on pretty much everything he's doing. So let me check the chat. Dex Invictus back with us. Nice hat. Yeah, I found this, man. I think I've had it for like since they gave it out at one of the Bitcoin conferences years back. And so I just felt like wearing it today. But anyways, okay, let me check Telegram, see if there's any comments here. That's the one point. That's the one I was looking for, actually. Thank you. I'm going to bring that up on another screen here. Okay, so for the rest of this real quick live stream, I wanted to kind of go through some of the stuff that's going on over there in Davos and tie it into my macro thesis. If you guys are finding me for the first time, welcome. I am kind of like a rebel Bitcoiner, been around for a very long time, and have my own views on how Bitcoin will be adopted, what the current state of the global financial system is, and a very unique macro thesis about how money works and all of that stuff. Coming from the Austrian side of the house as a gold bug, then I found Bitcoin many years ago. And so I am coming from a Austrian type lens and understanding sound money and all of that. That's the main argument for Bitcoin. But it's not going to happen from an inflationary side. It's going to actually happen from a deflationary side, the deflationary pressure on the economy. And so that's where I differ. But also in my broader macro thesis, it involves things like demographics. It involves things like deglobalization. All right. And so all of those things together is what I talk about here on the show. And Bitcoin is obviously a huge part of that. But anyway, so let's go through some of these tweets that I saw. Let me maximize the screen for the guys over there on Telegram. Okay. Oh yes, it did not snow where I was, or where I live, but it did snow in Florida, and they had record snowfall. I saw some places in Louisiana got 12 inches of snow. It was the first time ever there was a blizzard on the Gulf of Mexico, from what I understand. So that's a pretty big deal. Of course, it's climate change. It's climate. It's not global warming, guys. It's climate change. They can stop freaking out about warming now, the 1.5 degrees or whatever they're talking about, because it's climate change. It's not global warming, except when it's cooling. I don't know. I can't figure it out. It's all a bunch of craziness. Ethereum is falling apart. People are leaving. .eths are gone off of Twitter pretty much. And some of their developers here, apparently this Eric Connor is not a core developer, but a pretty significant player or personality or person in Ethereum, and he's leaving because he's fed up with Vitalik's taking over of Ethereum. What else do we have going on here today? Okay. Yeah, here's this crazy shot of the horrifying effects of global warming. Look at that blizzard snowfall down here. First time ever blizzard on the Gulf of Mexico. But okay, let's go up here and talk about what's going on in Davos. So like I said about my macro thesis is deglobalization is a big part of it. And so Davos and the EU, which are very closely related, they're a globalist project, okay? Globalism, globalization of trade, global Marxists. That's what they are. They're global Marxists. And they are freaking out. They're freaking out right now about what's happening, not only in the United States with Trump, but what's happening in their own countries with Marine Le Pen, Giorgia Meloni, Viktor Orban, Poland, right-wing governments or right-wing parties in Germany, Sweden, all over the place. Of course, Brexit was a big part of that, but that has been successfully squashed for the time being in the UK, unfortunately. But hopefully a conservative movement can start there as well. And so they see this rising tide, And what do? All they can do is call for cooperation, coordination, working together. That's all that they can do. And it's not going to happen. The harder they push, the less likely we will be to actually cooperate with people. So let me refresh this real quick, and I'm going to find some of these tweets. 126 people watching. If you're watching over on X, jump over to the YouTube and Rumble. Links are in my pinned tweet. You can see that. So there we are right there. A little inception. All right. Just going to find, oh, it's on likes. It's not on actual posts. So let's go down. Okay, first one is here. We're going to listen to this and him talking about we need to get rid of those really troublesome
with the
accounts.
I propose putting an end to anonymity on social media. In our countries, no one can walk the streets with a mask on their face or drive a car without a license plate. No one can send packages without showing an ID or buy a hunting weapon without giving their name. And yet, we are allowing people to roam freely on social networks without linking their profiles to a real identity. This paving the way for misinformation, hate speech, and cyber harassment, because it is facilitated.
He seems like he's under a little bit of duress. He looks over at Klaus Schwab. Yeah, he seems like this is the thing that he was given to talk about. He's not really showing much enthusiasm, but I mean, you don't need an ID to send a package, do you? You just drop it in the mail. I can get a rental car. That's not tied to the license plate. I don't need to have all this identification everywhere I go. These are false equivalents. And of course, they all they can do is push. They can only push forward. They can never reevaluate and try to undo some of these crazy things.
Facilitating the use of bots, and it is allowing people to act without being held accountable for their actions. Such an anomaly cannot continue. In a democracy, citizens have the right to privacy, not to anonymity or impunity. Because with those two, social coexistence would be impossible.
So when you walk down the street, you have to wear a sign that says your name. You have to wear name tags now as you're walking down the street.
That is why I believe we must push forward the principle of pseudonymity as the functioning element of social media, and force all these platforms to link every user account to an European digital identity wallet. This way,
no, there it is. They're just trying to get social credit score. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This is the one I was looking for earlier on the pregame show on Telegram. Point linked it for me. Here we go.
Trump has done something no person in the world has ever done before. A dead man, a dead politician, has risen. Somebody who, if we were 4 years ago at Davos, he's buried, dead politically, known to me. He's now returned. This is the greatest comeback in political history of a politician. And then, therefore, he thinks he can do anything.
We need to also...
That's a great point, and I totally agree.
Factor in not only who's won, which is Trump, but who's lost, which is to say us. And I guess I would throw into that the epitome of the us who is losing here is Europe. That the European Union and by and large its member states have misread the direction where events were going. The causes that it is interested in, climate, human rights, some others, as well as the methods of diplomacy that it prefers, are simply being gradually kind of marginalized as something new, not necessarily something better, but something new moves into the center.
Yeah, that's true. And they all see it happening, but they can't do anything about it. That is the way Marxists work. Marxists go forward with a dialectic. You have the thesis, the antithesis, and the synthesis. It is a forward stepping progressive. Okay. There is no backward movement in Marxist thought. And so they are unable to change. A lot of people after Trump won, they're like, are the Democrats going to learn a lesson? Are they going to kick the radicals out of the party? And what did we just see with that bishop or whoever that was preaching there with Trump and J.D. Vance in the audience and continually pushing their radical ideology? They cannot change. They cannot shift. If you watch MSNBC, they're continuing to push this. And the harder they push, the more it will backfire on them. I was also saying on Telegram in the pre-show that I am worried because since they can't go backwards, all they can do is escalate. So they're going to escalate this in Europe as they start losing control, as they push harder. This stuff, to me, it's like clear as day what is about to happen over there. The U.S. is a little bit off the hook because of Trump. Canada is hopefully going to be able to peacefully get out of this, but I think I can see some civil wars happening in Europe, and hopefully it doesn't, like, somebody doesn't rise to power. And I mean that's what I've said for a long time, is European populism is different than American populism. American populism is isolationist, and maybe you could say like slightly expanding, like going west out to the frontier and adventure. Now we're talking about Greenland and Panama and maybe Canada's 51st state or whatever. So it is slightly expansionary in that way, but mainly it's isolationist. Okay. European populism is not isolationist. It is, our neighbors are threatening us. We need to stop them from threatening us. Just look at Russia. I mean, one of the big things about Russia and why they're felt threatened and had to go into Ukraine is because they don't have defensible borders. They have this huge long border that is just not defensible. So they had to push it out to defensible borders, which would be the Carpathians there, the Black Sea, that type of stuff. And so that's part of what's going on over there. It's this, and Russia, Putin is a populist. So this populism in Europe is very dangerous, and it is going to rise harder and harder. So that's kind of scary. Okay, so that was some of the WEF. Let's go back to this tab and scroll down. Here's Klaus Schwab. They face the erosion of trust in our society.
We also have to face an erosion of trust in our society. We all must work together to regain trust in order to progress nationally and internationally. This can only be achieved.
An erosion of trust. So this is one thing I've been saying for so many years, is that the international trust is breaking down. That's part of the whole deglobalization thing as well. So international bodies will start to lose that trust, and national bodies as well. But mainly international bodies will start to lose trust from the international community, and they will slowly go away. I mean, one of the things is a symptom of this is Trump withdrawing from the WHO yesterday. One thing that I saw was Panama is taking their grievances to the UN about Trump's comments that they're going to take back the Panama Canal. And what is the UN going to do? There is a very specific treaty that the U.S. has with Panama, that Panama controls the canal. There are no third parties I think the language is no third parties and no foreign governments. And what are they doing? They have Chinese third parties managing the ports along the canal and managing parts of the canal. They also are this in the treaty, they have to stay neutral. Well, they're charging American vessels more than other vessels. And so, no, by the letter of the treaty, what's the UN going to say? The UN's going to say, no, Panama, you're in violation of this treaty. Well, can they say that? Will other countries think that's legitimate? Will they want the UN to arbitrate in a different way and actually blame the United States? Okay, well, if that's the case, then what does the United States do? The United States complains and loses international trust within the institutions. So it's a lose scenario for everybody in this. And the only result is going to be a decreased confidence and trust in the UN. That's the only result. Here he says erosion of trust, that's going to happen. So what happens with the erosion of trust? Well, you have less international trade, you have higher tariffs. Countries that depend heavily on international trade, like a very important one would be fertilizer in Africa, that starts to break down, at least on a marginal to a marginal degree. So, just instead of saying there's $100 billion worth of trade, there's $90 billion worth of trade. And the marginal losses, I mean, when it comes to things like fertilizer, when it comes to the poorer countries losing 10% of their marginal trade, it's going to affect a lot of people very, very badly. So that's part of deglobalization. Export-led countries are going to be more heavily affected than import countries because the customer is always right. If you have the money that people are selling you the product, somebody will sell to you because you have the money that people want. The exporter is actually in the weaker position. They're in the weaker bargaining position. And so export-led countries, mainly China in this case, but also Russia to a high degree, they are going to be in trouble because they are going to be harmed worse by deglobalization. And finally, we have the credit markets. So the credit markets, global credit markets, the Eurodollar system, as you start having less international trust, those credit relations break down. I mean, trust is a very important characteristic to build a credit market, right? On top of this trust. Well, if that trust goes away and erodes, like Klaus Schwab is saying here, credit markets will also shrink. And what is money today? Money is credit. Credit markets shrink means the supply of money will shrink, and not in a controlled way, in a fairly uncontrolled way. And so we're going to have, deflation on a massive scale. And yeah, so that's what all of these people are saying here in these things. We watched that. Let's listen to this lady here.
And to make sure that we can ramp up our defense industry and get the products we need on time. For decades, Europe has produced strategic documents, roadmaps, and declarations. It's time we move beyond to more missiles, tanks, and ships. We need to make sure that we can...
Okay, so she's talking about ramping up, time for war. And that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about for that. Let's take a look at the comments here. I'll go to a holding screen. Hold on a second. Okay, we'll go here. That's bitcoinmarkets.com. That's the homepage. You guys can go there to sign up for the free newsletter, free email list, and you can also support my work there. Dex Invictus never needed an idea for an ID for the mail. Yes, that's what I thought. Great for Ross and his mom. Was mentioning Austrian economics on his site back in the day. What a legend. Yeah, Ross is great. I think, he was influenced by the Free State Project and the Libertarian Party, and they are a derivative of the Austrian School of Economics. The Libertarian Party is, because Rothbard, I think, pretty much started the Libertarian Party. And Rothbard being one of the grandfathers of the Austrian school. So yeah, this Austrians went into libertarians, which was a big part of the Free State Project, which was really big right around that time when Silk Road was happening, and partly led me to finding Bitcoin as well when I did, because I was listening to all those Free State Project podcasts and stuff back in the day. So yeah, it's somebody was saying that he's been selling NFTs to raise money for his defense, like stuff that he drew in prison, and then they would turn it into NFT and then sell it. And people were saying, hopefully he doesn't come out and start launching a bunch of tokens, right? I don't think he will, but we'll have to see how that shapes up. All right, let me go into Telegram and see if there's any comments in there. No. All right. Well, guys, that's it for this short live stream. I try to live stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday around this time. So like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you guys come and hang out. You can also check out the Telegram, t.me/Bitcoin and markets. That's where the community is. Most of the posting goes on over there. I probably post there as much or more than on Twitter. So check that out, and hope you guys have a good rest of your day. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.